welcome back to my channel. I thought this month I would film another tag video. I wanted to do the bookshelf tag just for fun, also to give me a reason to count all the books that I have because I was curious. So let's jump into it. First question is, how many bookshelves do you have? I have three, like 5-shelf bookcases, but I also have 2 nightstands that are like the 3-tier carts, and those also have books on them. I use those as like my TBR. So I guess 5 if you count those. It's like really tiny bookcases. But yeah. And then how many books are on your bookshelves? 268. And before I counted, I had kind of guessed it was going to be a couple hundred, so I was pretty close. The next question is, how do you organize your books? I organize my books by Coco. And I organize my books by genre. That's just what makes That's just what makes the most sense to me. It makes things easier to find. Yeah. Start to get into questions about specific books, and this is kind of where I just roast myself. Because the next question is, what is the oldest book on your bookshelf? And I had seen people answer this question either like the oldest published or like the one that they'd had the longest. So I was like, oh, let's answer it like both ways. That could be interesting. And they're both horse books for me. The book that I have had for the longest is a book about the different breeds of horses. And this probably explains why I am the way that I am. And then the oldest published book that I have is called Dressage, a study of the finer points of riding by, I can't even pronounce that last name, it's German. But yeah, so I took riding lessons in high school and got really close with my riding instructor. So she gave me a lot of her, like her library of horse books basically. So this is one of those that she gave me. I haven't read it because it was published in 1959. And I just don't think it would be a very fun read, a book about riding that came out in 1959. But that's it. The next question is, what is the newest book on your shelf? And that is The Toll by Neal Shusterman. I ordered it like as soon as it came out. This is it. I've talked about this one in my November wrap-up video. Highly recommend. It's my newest book. The next question is, what is the longest book on your bookshelf? And this was another one where I was like, it could go a couple of ways. So the book that I have that has the most, like the highest number of pages and is just like one single book, the one with the highest page count is The Fiery Cross by Diana Gabaldon. This is in the Outlander series. It's the 5th book in the series, and it's 1,443 pages. But I was kind of iffy about counting this one because even though it is only one volume, it's like the mass market paperback edition. So it's like, there are other editions of this book that are taller and wider, so I know that their page count is not as high, but because this one is like short and small, it's ridiculously thick. So if we're not going to count this one for that reason, like it only has this number of pages because it's that edition, then my biggest book would be Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. At 980 pages. Also a book I mentioned in my November wrap-up. The next question is, what is the shortest book on your bookshelf? And just on the theme of like, what are my reading tastes, it is the 2nd edition of this like booklet, which is Midwives and Nurses, a history of women healers. This is actually a really neat little booklet. It was first published in 1973, and like when the feminist movement started to really gain momentum, and it's just about how women have played such a big role as healers and like in the medical field for so much of the world's history, but also end up frequently being villainized for it. So yeah, this is just like an interesting little book. I don't know why I went on that ramble about it, but it's also the smallest book on my shelf. It's only 103 pages long. It's teeny tiny, but it's really interesting. It's a good like jumping off point if that kind of subject matter sounds like something you're interested in. The next question was, what is the predominant genre on your bookshelf? And I have no idea what the predominant genre on my bookshelf is. At first, I was like, probably fantasy. Well, maybe I do have more fantasy than anything else. You know what? Actually, scratch my confusion. The most predominant genre on my bookshelves is fantasy if we're counting like adult with YA fantasy. Probably. Have you done a bookshelf tour is the next question. No, I have not done a bookshelf tour exactly. When I have built and like organized my bookcases, I did a video of that. And then the next question, not really a question, but the next thing was to go on a random number generator and then talk about the book that corresponded with that number. So I started off, the number that the generator gave me was 77, but when I was counting to 77, like I started on this bookshelf because I was like, well, this is my first bookshelf, the 77th book on the bookshelf, like counting. But that one was gonna be like another horse book on my horse shelf, but I didn't want to talk about another horse book again. So, and then instead of doing like another random number and God forbid having to count higher than 77 when I've already counted all 268 of my books, I just did the 7th book on the 7th shelf, which was my sci-fi shelf, and it is The Wanderers by Meg Howry. I read this book last year, and I really liked it. This was a book that I've actually been meaning to reread. I enjoyed it so much. It's about astronauts doing a simulation for traveling to Mars, and it follows the it's 4 of them. Or is it 3? Just 3, sorry. The 3 astronauts that are going to be like the first people to Mars. They're doing like a simulation where they're training to go to Mars. And part of the thing of their simulation to prepare them for the isolation of this trip is that they can only write letters to correspond with like one friend or family member. And so the book follows the astronauts and then whichever friend or family member that they've chosen to write letters to or to communicate with while they're in the simulation. But anyway, I really enjoyed this book. The next question is, do you have any fan merch or other decorations on your bookshelves? Kinda. Like I've got a few like random things on my shelf. Like I have a couple horse models on one of my horse shelves because of course I do. And one of the things is to show your bookshelves and then to tag someone. I don't really have anything exciting to show you on my bookshelves. If you want to see what they look like, you can probably go back and see more on my organizing my bookshelf video, and then tag someone. I don't know anyone to tag. But anyway, thanks for watching. In case you couldn't tell, I filmed this video at the same time as my previous video, my November wrap-up, when I mentioned that I was feeling under the weather and apologized if the video wasn't as good of quality, and the statement still stands. But thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.